Hey guys, tonight we begin in the gilded perfume chambers of royalty, but don't be fooled by the velvet. Underneath all that lace and silk, it's damp. And no, not the romantic kind of damp. We're talking ye old mildew meets warm butter level of body scent. You're about to become a royal woman. Congratulations. You're rich, admired, powerful, but also unfortunately fermenting. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you tuning in from? And what time is it right now? I love seeing this sleepy little empire of ours grow across the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You awaken on a feather-stuffed canopy bed, draped in brocade so heavy it could block a small invasion. Your pillows are embroidered. The sheets are linen starch stiff as parchment. You feel important until you try to move and realize your nightgown is stuck to your skin with yesterday's sweat. And the day before, and probably the week before because you don't bathe. Not regularly. Not by modern standards. Maybe once a month if you're French, less if you're Spanish. And if you're English, well, welcome to the human cheese cave. Your skin is glowing, but mostly because of oil dust and something mysterious from your perfumed gloves. There is no deodorant, no running water. You sleep in a gown that hasn't been laundered since last St. Michael's Day, and your hair smells faintly of wine wig powder and something floral that's gone off. Why? Because bathing too much was seen as dangerous. Doctors believed warm water could open the pores and let in disease. Imagine being a princess and forbidden from soaking in a tub, not because it was unavailable, but because it was considered reckless. That's like being told too much sunlight might summon demons, which, to be fair, was also a thing. So you do what every respectable noblewoman does. You embrace the stink. With a smile, but not entirely. You fight back. Not with water heavens, no, but with layers. Silk undergarments, then linen, then a corset that you can't breathe in, then layers of petticoats and a gown thick enough to survive a jousting accident. It's like insulating yourself in wet wool and calling it elegance. And beneath it all, the smell. Of skin of the chamber pot you used at 4 a.m. of your wig that has absorbed 5 types of candle smoke, and of course your feet. Always your feet. The servants pretend not to notice, but they do. Especially the ones who have to air out your underthings at dawn, holding them with tongs like cursed artifacts. As you sit up, you reach for your scented handkerchief. It's drenched in rose oil. You dab behind your ears, your temples, your wrists, then your armpits. No one speaks of that last part, but we all know it happens. That handkerchief is doing heavy lifting. It's 6 a.m. The first audience of the day is in 2 hours. You haven't washed your face. You won't. Your skin must remain pale, powdered, and dry. Moisture is for milkmaids. Instead, a servant dusts your cheeks with white lead, a cosmetic choice known to eventually poison you. But it's the 1600s, and everything is poison, including your cousin's wine. Your eyebrows are plucked thin, or maybe shaved off entirely so they can be redrawn with charcoal or mouse fur. Oh yes, there's a fashion phase where mouse pelts become eyebrow wigs. You haven't quite decided if you're brave enough yet. Your breath smells like the inside of an old violin case. You chewed a clove last night and maybe sucked on a sugar cube soaked in rose water. But mostly, you rely on not speaking too closely. Your teeth have not been brushed. There is no toothbrush. At best a twig, maybe a cloth, often just prayer. And your body, let's not discuss it in daylight. You haven't properly bathed since the Archbishop's feast 3 weeks ago, when you got to sit in a tepid wooden tub filled with cloudy water that 3 maids poured from pots one at a time. No soap, just a cloth, and maybe some herbs. But mostly, you sat pretended to enjoy yourself and tried not to think about the fact that the Queen herself only bathes 4 times a year. Once during Lent was seen as unusually clean. You may have heard that Queen Elizabeth might claim she bathed once a month, whether she needed it or not. That was revolutionary, luxurious, modern. Some historians question the quote, but the sentiment, very real. Meanwhile, your underarms itch. The sleeves of your dress are tight and trap heat like an oven. You can't lift your arms above your head without help. And when you sweat, and you will, it pools along your corset line, where it mixes with old perfume starch and probably a few uninvited mites. But no matter. You're royal. You don't smell. Everyone knows that. And if they say otherwise, they're banished. You reach for your lace collar. It's slightly yellowed, but still crisp with starch. You pin it into place with fingers stiff from sleeping in gloves, a beauty habit to keep your hands white as ivory. Those gloves are soaked in almond oil vinegar and sometimes whale vomit ambergris to mask the smell of decay. You're dressed, painted, scented, ready to be admired. But you're not clean. You haven't been clean in months. And that, dear listener, is just the start. You don't bathe, but, oh, do you smell fabulous? Or at least that's the idea. You royal lady of grace and grit have a fragrance routine so intense it could knock a lesser nose unconscious. But here's the hard truth. It's not for seduction. It's for survival. Because the last time your armpits saw water, your father was still king, and leeches were still considered cutting-edge skincare. Your servants know it. Your ladies-in-waiting know it. The entire court knows it. But no one says a word. Because your perfume, sweet mercy, your perfume is louder than any criticism. The morning begins not with a splash of water, but with a dousing. First, the rosewater rinse, not to cleanse, of course, but to awaken the senses. Spoiler, it doesn't. Then a layer of lavender oil behind the ears, a dab of civet under each arm. And yes, civet. That would be the oily glandular secretion of a cat-like animal from Africa, aged in clay pots, and dabbed delicately onto your noble wrist. It smells powerful. Then comes the musk. Always the musk. It clings to your skin like gossip, thick and unrelenting. Musk is extracted from a deer's scent gland, ground steeped mixed with oils. In theory, it's divine. In practice, it's a little like wearing heartbreak and wet barnwood. But it does the job. It overpowers. Your maid wafts a burning sprig of juniper through the chamber. Smoke spirals up like holy incense meant to dispel foul vapors, a phrase repeated so often by medieval doctors, it might as well be a medical license. The idea of invisible disease particles floating through the air known as miasma terrifies your court. Bad smell equals bad health, they say. So the solution isn't to remove the dirt, it's to dominate it. Perfume becomes war. You are the battlefield. By mid-morning, you've already reapplied 3 scents. Why? Because your clothes are heavy, your corset is tight, and your body is a simmering pot of noble stew. One wrong movement, and you'll be venting week-old sweat through imported lace. So you press another pomander to your nose. A pomander is your medieval Fabrezi, an ornate metal ball filled with cloves, herbs, dried flowers, ambergris, and the occasional chunk of dried orange stuffed with cinnamon. It's not dainty, it's defense. You wear it on a chain at your waist, or hold it discreetly in your gloved hand. Sometimes you even pin one to your bodice. The message is clear. I am scented. I am sacred. I do not stink, even though, dear listener, you absolutely do. Still, you hold your head high. The other women at court do the same. Some carry sachets of crushed violets, others rub themselves with vinegar and thyme. One duchess, you know, swears by a mixture of crushed mint leaves and goat's milk curd, rubbed vigorously into the scalp to neutralize the vapors. It doesn't, but she insists. Bathing unnecessary, risky, foolish. One noble physician wrote that women who immerse themselves in water invite disorders of the womb. That sounds dramatic because it is, but in a world without germ theory, people truly believed that soaking could cause fever plague or worse infertility. So instead, you reapply your fragrance every few hours like a nervous diplomat trying to cover up a scandal. And oh, the scandals are many. One countess fainted at court when a servant lifted her skirts and revealed the unmistakable scent of last summer's fever balm, soured by time and thigh sweat. Another lady was banished from court, not for her politics, but for her odor. She had been relying too heavily on a perfume made from boiled onions, a traditional remedy meant to fortify the spirit. Instead, she cleared an entire hall of nobles in under 10 minutes. Your own scent is more refined. A blend of rose attar, almond oil, and an exotic touch of spikenard. Spikenard, if you haven't heard of it, is a root from the Himalayas that smells like moss and reverence. Very fashionable in royal circles. Even Cleopatra was rumored to dab it behind her ears right before throwing herself into international drama. But what do you smell like now, really? Let's be honest. You smell like a scented wardrobe that's been locked in a carriage during summer. A mix of flowers' fear and that strange, sticky warmth that only comes from weeks without washing. Your maids fan you. They dab at your temples. You smile regally and pretend you don't hear the whispers. Everyone's sweating. Everyone's rotting just a little. In fact, one scholar has argued with some debate, of course, that the courtly emphasis on perfume rituals was not just vanity, but a survival mechanism. If you couldn't smell your own decline, you could believe in your own superiority. A perfumed woman was divine. Cleanliness, optional, but fragrance required. So you sit at dinner, layered in scent, like an olfactory parfait. The room smells of wax meat and ambition. You pass the salt cellar with a dainty nod, careful not to lift your arm too high. Your perfume rises to meet your neighbor's nose. They blink once, then smile. Success. Even your bed is scented. Dried lavender stitched into the pillows, rose petals crushed under the sheets. Some women even sleep with perfumed rags tied around their necks. You tried that once. It slipped and nearly suffocated you. But no matter. You now keep a pot of balm under your pillow, a mixture of beeswax, clove oil, and crushed sandalwood. When you finally collapse into bed, your body is sticky, your head is pounding, and the scent of musk and mildew has become your lullaby. You close your eyes, knowing full well you'll be repeating the entire ritual tomorrow. Because as a royal woman, you don't just wear perfume. You survive by it. You sit tall, your posture impeccable, your jewels dazzling beneath the flicker of candlelight, and your scalp itches like the devil. Welcome to the glamorous nightmare that is your wig. Towering, powdered, perfumed, and crawling with secrets. This is not just a hairstyle. It is an ecosystem, an architectural marvel, and sometimes a fully inhabited woodland. Wigs in your world are not subtle affairs. They're theatrical, gravity-defying statements of wealth and power. The higher the hair, the closer to God, or at least to your tailor's bankruptcy. Yours is made from a blend of human hair, goat hair, and horse hair, with some powdered wool stitched in for volume. It's been rolled, curled, teased, pinned, and flowered to perfection. And it weighs roughly the same as a small watermelon. You don't put it on yourself. Don't be ridiculous. That's the job of at least 2 servants and a chair with armrests. They hoist it like ceremonial armor and carefully settle it onto your real hair, which hasn't been washed in. Well, who's counting? You tuck your head down, hold your breath, and pray. There's no surprise movement that might loosen the powdered fortress. And inside, that's where the drama lives. Because a wig this opulent isn't just a fashion statement, it's also a temporary residence for things best not mentioned in polite company. Lice, fleas, maybe a moth or two. Your maid swears she once found a beetle sleeping beneath a ribbon. Another noble woman famously had a mouse nest in her curls for 3 days before anyone noticed. You never looked at her the same way again. To be fair, your wig does a lot of heavy lifting. It hides the fact that your real hair is brittle, patchy, and somewhere between powdered rust and greasy rope. It covers the bald spot you got from last winter's fever, and it distracts from the fact that you haven't had access to a decent comb in weeks because your lady-in-waiting keeps misplacing them. Wigs are high maintenance. You can't wash them, not really. So instead you powder them, liberally. With flour, crushed starch chalk, or, if you're feeling decadent, ground bone. The powder absorbs the oils, masks the smell, and gives that coveted ghostly white sheen. It also leaves clouds in your wake, which is how one knows a duchess has entered a room, even before the trumpets play. The problem, of course, is that powder attracts things. It settles, it flakes, it clings to your clothes, your collar, your eyebrows. You sneeze often. Everyone sneezes often. Nobody comments. You just dab politely at your nose with a perfume cloth and carry on. Now you may ask what happens at night? Nothing good. Wigs are rarely removed for sleeping. Too much effort. Too many pins. Instead, you lie still, face tilted slightly, like a taxidermy project. If you must take it off, it rests carefully on a velvet stand beside your bed, where it watches you through the night, like a powdered specter of courtly obligation. If you forget to powder it in the morning, it smells faintly of candle grease, scalp oil, and regret. There's always one day a week, usually Sunday, when your maid airs out your wig on the windowsill. She fluffs it with lavender sachets and waves away the hovering flies. One time, she beat it gently with a wooden spoon to awaken the shape. Another time, she shrieked because a spider the size of a coin scurried out from beneath the curls. You remember that day vividly. You didn't leave your chambers until nightfall. Oh, and let's not forget the powdered lice repellent, a mixture of vinegar, rosemary, and crushed garlic that's dabbed along your scalp line. It works in theory. In practice, it just makes you smell like a roasted herb garden gone rancid. Some royal women go even bigger. Marie Antoinette once wore a wig depicting a naval battle complete with tiny ships and rigging. Another queen allegedly wore a confection shaped like a fruit basket filled with real grapes. You try not to be that dramatic. You prefer dignity. Just a few ostrich feathers and a tasteful satin bow, maybe a rose, maybe 2. But here's the problem. Your neck isn't designed for this. After 10 minutes of standing, you feel the weight pressing down. After an hour, your spine begins to sing. By the end of the night, Your shoulders are quivering, your temples throbbing, and you've acquired a mild hunch. But it's worth it, because no one remembers the royal who showed up undercoiffed. They remember the woman whose wig swept a candelabra off the table at the ambassador's dinner. That was you. You're still apologizing for the scorch mark on the tapestry. And yes, your wig is flammable. All powdered wigs are. The flower dust hanging in the air can ignite if a candle gets too close. It's why every lady keeps a silk fan handy, not for modesty, but for swatting away flames. Some historians argue that the obsession with wigs was about hygiene. Real hair was too much trouble, too oily, too prone to lice, too honest. A wig could be powdered shaped, even loaned out. Yes, that's a thing. Others say it was about control, about crafting an image of unassailable beauty in a world of plagues and politics. But most agree it was exhausting and dangerous. One duchess died when her wig collapsed on a staircase, blinding her mid-descent. Another caught fire during a garden party. You've learned to keep a damp cloth nearby, just in case. So you sit, elegant, composed, majestic, an itch. But do you scratch? Absolutely not. You smile. You suffer. You adjust the bow on your forehead and pretend everything's fine. Because in this court, beauty is pain, and your wig is pain in powdered form. You're seated in a high-backed chair, eyes half-lidded from the weight of staying upright for the past 3 hours, while a servant beats your skull with powder. Welcome to your weekly hair ritual, a routine so tedious, so gritty, and so questionably toxic that you'd almost prefer a leech bath. Almost. It begins early. You're summoned to the dressing chamber before the sunlight properly pierces the windows. You shuffle in, still wrapped in yesterday's sweat and your nightly linen shift that smells faintly of lavender mildew and something suspiciously poultry-like. You're not sure if it's from your cushion or your own scalp. The hair ritual is part beauty, part battle. Your real hair, what's left of it, is limp, dry, and coarse from a lifetime of being ignored. It's been hidden under wigs and caps rubbed with oils and occasionally attacked with a heated rod if your hairdresser is feeling bold. There's no shampoo, no conditioner, just raw soap, cold water, which is too dangerous to use often, and friction. The process always begins with the inspection. Your lady-in-waiting gently lifts your curls with a comb that has seen better centuries. She gasps quietly, professionally, as she discovers a patch of your scalp that's flaking like a stale croissant. A good sign, actually. It means your hair is dry enough for powder. Next comes the vinegar rinse. Not to clean, but to prepare. It's mixed with herbs, rosemary, if you're lucky, thyme, if you're out of rosemary, and nettles, if your maid is secretly mad at you. The cold vinegar drips behind your ears. It smells like pickled despair. You sit motionless, draped in towels, while the powder is prepared. Powdering is essential. It absorbs oils, adds volume, and gives you that fashionable ghost bride look. But not all powder is created equal. Yours is a blend of wheat, starch, crushed rice, and orris root, a scented additive derived from the iris flower. It sounds elegant until you realize some batches are cut with ground chalk plaster or even arsenic. Yes, arsenic. Just a pinch. For brightness. You've heard rumors some women developed skin sores. Others fainted mid-ball. One countess even lost her eyebrows. That didn't stop her. She drew them back on with soot. The dangers of arsenic powder are whispered behind fans, but the shine it gives your hair is undeniable. So you sit, and submit. The servant begins. She plunges a puffing bellows, yes, a literal bellows, into the tin of powder and pumps a fine mist directly at your scalp. It coats your head in a soft fog of white settling onto your roots like snow. It gets everywhere in your lashes, up your nose, in the folds of your collar. You sneeze once, twice. Your lady-in-waiting dabs your nose with a monogrammed cloth. You're not allowed to move. Next comes the shaping. The remaining hair is teased upward, knotted, and pinned into position with stiffened silk ribbons. You watch barely blinking as a second maid plats smaller sections and ties them into loops. Then the powdering resumes, another layer heavier now to set the style. This is where the fringe detail emerges, a fashionable wave above the brow, shaped with beeswax and trembling with elegance. You hate it, but it's fashionable, and if the Duchess of Artois has it, so must you. By now, your throat is dry from inhaling powder. You sip from a pewter cup of watered wine, careful not to move your jaw too much. Your hairdresser is balancing a small bird-shaped brooch just above your temple. Yes, a bird. Accessory trends this season include feathers, fake fruit, and in one horrifying case, an entire miniature windmill perched atop a marquess's bun. You've opted for moderation, a single ceramic dove resting in a thicket of curled hair that looks alarmingly like a wasp nest. You want to itch. You really do, but you mustn't. Not until the lacquer is applied. Ah, yes, lacquer. The final touch is a sticky resin brushed delicately over the top layers to keep everything in place. It smells like pine and faint panic. You'll be sleeping upright again tonight to preserve it. At this point, your hair is no longer hair. It's a sculpture, a historical monument, a powdered, perfumed, possibly flammable temple to the absurdity of royal beauty standards. And you still have 4 public appearances today. You walk through the corridor like a statue in slow motion, careful not to tilt your head. If the powder shifts, your entire hairstyle may collapse like a poorly built cathedral. You do not nod. You incline. You do not laugh. You smile faintly, and your eyes, well, they scream. One time, after a humid dinner with Portuguese dignitaries, your entire hairstyle slumped sideways like a melting wedding cake. You excused yourself and wept behind a tapestry. But today is a good day. Your hair holds. The bird stays perched. Your scalp only itches a little. People comment on your look. She's glowing, someone whispers. She smells of violets and almonds, another murmurs. You resist the urge to say, no, I smell like rice powder vinegar and structural despair. But you smile, because this is beauty. This is court. And this, dear listener, is how your hair becomes your crown, one bellows puff at a time. It's the middle of the night. Candlelight flickers low across your bedchamber. You stir slightly beneath heavy embroidered covers, momentarily disturbed not by dreams of political scandal or courtly intrigue, but by the uncomfortable reality of your full bladder. You are a royal woman, and you need to pee. This is not, as one might hope, a discreet or refreshing moment of relief. It is, in fact, a logistical and social performance known as the chamber pot ballet. There is no toilet, no powder room, no privacy, just a painted porcelain bowl, perhaps gilded, if you're particularly fancy, nestled discreetly beneath your bed, or tucked behind a velvet screen. It's called a bordaloo, and it is both your greatest ally and your most embarrassing acquaintance. You don't rise unassisted. That's not allowed. Instead, you cough lightly just enough to wake your most loyal maid. She appears from her cot in the corner, like a ghostly silhouette yawning behind her sleeve. Without words, she moves to help. She knows the drill. Your nightgown rustles as she lifts it. The chamber is cold. You shiver. The porcelain is even colder. Now the angle is everything. You cannot simply crouch and be done with it. No, that would be peasant behavior. You must hover delicately balanced on the edge of an ottoman or a special stool with a hole cut out, legs crossed at the ankles, posture upright. Your maid kneels steadying the pot with both hands, like a priest receiving an offering. You try not to think about it. The sound, of course, is what ruins you. That soft yet unmistakable tinkling echo that carries across stone floors and tapestries. Worse, some of these chambers amplify. Echo. You once had to relieve yourself during a dinner party behind a screen set up in the dining hall. That was the French court's idea of efficiency. You wanted to vanish into the floorboards. The bourdaloue was designed for such elegant suffering. Shaped like a gravy boat with a widened lip, it fits snugly beneath skirts and petticoats. Sometimes it's lined with velvet. Sometimes, horrifyingly not. Either way, it's better than squatting over a wooden bucket in the stables. Afterward, your maid rises, lifts the pot, and disappears. You pretend not to notice the slight splash as she stumbles over your shoes. You pray she does not trip. She exits through the servants' corridor to dispose of the contents sometimes into a dedicated waste chute, sometimes out a window depending on architectural flair and social class. If she's lazy or rebellious, she may just leave it in the corner until morning. You'll know by breakfast, but what if you're not in your chambers, Then things get more complicated. Public chamber pots, commode chairs they're called, are often installed in antechambers or hidden behind paravents during events. You might slip behind a curtain between dances, praying no one hears you, and praying even harder that the previous user didn't miss. At grand estates, there may be closets of ease, small side rooms with benches and built-in pots. If you're extremely lucky, there's a wooden box lined with lead or pewter topped with embroidered cushions. You sit to your business and then ring a bell. Someone else handles the rest. Royalty doesn't wipe. That's for maids and fate. And what about during travel? You use a traveling pot, a leather-wrapped tin tucked beneath the carriage seat. It sloshes dangerously with every bump, and you once made the mistake of peeing during a thunderstorm. You've never forgiven that driver. There's also the risk of being overheard. Chamber pots, especially in shared spaces, create a certain ambiance, a cacophony of splashes, coughs, and the soft scrape of porcelain on stone. Ladies gossip while waiting their turn. A countess once passed you a scented sachet under the divider and whispered, "It helps." You've kept it ever since. She wasn't wrong. Perfume is your only defense. You dab rose water on your pulse points before and after. Some ladies keep a toilette water bottle nearby just for this purpose, filled with orange blossom violet or bergamot. You spray it on the pot itself, on your skirts, on your soul. Now let's not pretend this is hygienic. Servants empty the pots, but not always thoroughly. You've seen flies in court chambers. You've smelled things that defy description. You once caught a glimpse of a duchess's private servant dumping 3 chamber pots into the garden hedges right before a croquet match. And yet, there's status in your chamber pot. Yours was a gift, painted with cherubs, a golden rim. Your initials in elegant script. It sits in a velvet-lined chest polished weekly. It is to your horror on display during some tours of your estate. Oh, look. Visitors say the princess's personal pot. Royal, yes. Dignified, debatable. There's an ongoing debate among scholars. How often did royal women truly relieve themselves in private? Were there dedicated bathrooms in palaces? Some say yes, especially in later centuries. Others argue no, the architecture didn't allow for it, and social norms favored personal attendance over plumbing. What's not debated? It was awkward, dehumanizing, necessary. You envied men who could step outside and relieve themselves by a tree. You have layers, petticoats, hoops, corsets, lace, modesty, reputation. You once joked, if I must remove one more ribbon to urinate, I shall simply explode. Everyone laughed. You weren't joking. And then, of course, there's your monthly visitor. You'll get to that later. For now, the chamber pot has been emptied. The maid has returned. She nods silently. You return to your bed and lie back down, pretending the entire ritual didn't just happen. The pot waits beneath your bed once more, like a loyal pet or a silent threat. And so you sleep. You dream of waterfalls and wake up needing to go again. You awake at dawn, the sun peeking through your velvet curtains, doves cooing gently outside your stone-framed window, and your mouth tastes like old pennies. You are royalty, yes, but your breath could be legally classified as a weapon. Welcome to the most awkward and least discussed aspect of noble hygiene your mouth. It's not that you're lazy, you're just historically accurate. Dental hygiene as a concept exists in your time, but only as a vague and inconsistent suggestion. There's no toothpaste, no toothbrush, no minty freshness. Instead, your options range from chewing on twigs to hope no one gets close enough to notice. Your breath, a medieval bouquet of wine residue clove dust, stale bread, and the slow, silent retreat of enamel. You begin your morning ablutions, not by brushing, but by rinsing. With wine. Yes, actual wine. You swish it around to disinfect your mouth, and then spit into a ceramic basin. It's a dry red, possibly from last night's banquet. It leaves your gums feeling tingly, and your teeth vaguely sticky. Your lady-in-waiting offers you a small bundle of dried herbs, sage rosemary, and mint tied together with thread. You chew it slowly, grinding the leaves between your teeth to refresh the palate. It helps a little, but mostly it makes you feel like a cow at a noble garden party. If you're lucky, your court physician has prepared a paste made of crushed salt vinegar and occasionally ground oyster shell. You dip a linen cloth into it and rub it across your teeth. Gently. Too much pressure and your gums bleed. Too little and the smell remains. Most days, you skip the paste. Why? Because it tastes like licking the inside of a fisherman's purse. Besides, everyone stinks. Why should you be the exception? Of course, there's another option. Powdered charcoal. You've tried it once. You ended up with black streaks in your smile, and a nobleman asked if you'd been chewing soot for breakfast. You didn't smile for a week. As for your teeth, they're there. Mostly. A little yellow. A little loose. You had one pulled last summer after it rotted from the inside out. There was no anesthetic. Just a handkerchief to bite and a servant to hold you down while the barber yanked. You screamed so loudly they heard it in the East Wing. The court poet wrote a sonnet about it. You haven't forgiven him. You still have dreams about that sound, the wet pop, and the metallic taste of blood. Now you rinse with clove oil nightly, hoping to numb whatever rot might be forming next. Your gums are red, inflamed, possibly receding. But that's fashionable. A pale, toothy smile is all the rage at court. No one mentions the abscessed molars. Some ladies swish with honey water. Others chew licorice root to darken their gums, believing it makes their teeth appear whiter by contrast. It doesn't. It just makes your mouth smell like burnt sugar and lies. You dab rose oil beneath your nose to distract yourself from the scent of your own jaw. And yet this is normal. You've kissed suitors with breath that could corrode silver. You've dined beside bishops whose molars click like maracas when they chew. Once at a royal wedding, a duchess fainted either from heat or the breath of the man beside her. It remains a subject of court debate. Even monarchs suffer. One queen is rumored to have had all her teeth removed, at 30, replaced with carved ivory set into gold. She smiled like a saint and couldn't eat anything tougher than boiled turnip. Another royal had teeth so rotten he kept oranges in his pockets, biting into them to mask the smell. He died at 50. Everyone blamed the oranges. And what of kisses romanticized in poems, terrifying in practice? Courtship means standing closer than comfort allows, whispering sweet nothings through a fog of fermented breath and spicy clove oil. You once leaned in to kiss a prince and nearly gagged. His tongue tasted like garlic and linen. You pretended it was charming. Now you keep candied fennel seeds tucked in a pouch at your waist. You pop one after every meal. They crunch between your teeth and leave a faint licorice trail. It helps. A little. You've heard of toothpicks, delicate slivers of bone or wood used after meals. Some ladies sharpen quills for the same purpose. You once saw a countess use a hairpin. It got stuck. She bled into her soup. Everyone applauded her bravery. And don't even ask about the water. You're not rinsing with it. Not unless you want dysentery and a royal funeral by Tuesday. Your court physician insists that oral hygiene is a matter of constitution. He recommends chewing fennel sleeping upright and avoiding all fruit after sundown. You ignore him, of course. He once tried to treat a sore throat by attaching a dead mouse to someone's chin. No thank you. So you soldier on. You do your best. You chew your mint. You rinse your mouth with dubious wine. And you smile. Carefully. Politely. With closed lips. Because in your world, beauty may be sacred, but breath is a curse. And your curse is particularly aromatic. It's noon, and the sun has crept high enough to turn your grand stone palace into a convection oven. You are dressed to receive guests. You are smiling. You are shimmering in embroidered glory. And you are marinating. Let's talk about sweat. The royal court doesn't like to discuss perspiration. It prefers to pretend it doesn't happen. That the ladies of the realm glisten but never sweat. That the noble underarms are immune to biology. But you know better. You live it. Every single day. Today, like most days, you are fully dressed before breakfast. It starts with a linen chemise, your only real barrier between skin and everything else. It's white, meant to absorb the worst of what your body emits. It doesn't do a great job. Over that goes your corset. It's stiffened with whalebone, tightly laced and utterly unbreathable. It takes 2 maids to fasten it while you hold onto the bedpost and try not to black out. Once it's secured, your organs are no longer where they started. Then come the petticoats. 1, 2, sometimes 3 layers of thick wool or silk, depending on the season. You wear them even in summer, because modesty has no temperature. And finally, the gown, a marvel of stitching lace and irrational expectations. By the time you're fully dressed, you've sweat through your chemise, dampened your corset, and possibly sprouted a rash somewhere unmentionable. Now, you still have to face the day. There is no such thing as changing into something lighter. You wear your one gown all day. If it's an important event, you might switch out the overgown, but the rest stays. Relacing a corset isn't done lightly. It's a commitment, like marriage, but less forgiving. As the day progresses, your sweat intensifies. It collects behind your knees, under your arms, in the small of your back where your corset bites into flesh. You feel it dripping, but you pretend not to notice. Everyone pretends. Ladies bring embroidered handkerchiefs to dab their brows. Some keep sachets of lavender tucked in their cleavage. One particularly desperate duchess you know once lined her sleeves with moss. She swore it wicked away the shame. She smelled like a pond for days. And here's the thing, you can't wash your clothes after each use. Laundering a gown is an ordeal. Fabric is expensive, soap is harsh, and water is suspicious. Most gowns are brushed down and aired out. That's it. Your chemise might be boiled once a week. Your corset, never. It's a textile time capsule of everything you've ever done in it, including that faint but unmistakable whiff of fierce sweat from last month's duel announcement. The only relief comes at night, when the guests leave the candles dim and your maids unlace your corset with reverent silence. You gasp as your lungs re-expand. You scratch your back for the first time all day. The chemise is peeled off, soaked yellowed at the underarms, stiff with dried effort. Your skin underneath is a patchwork of creases, salt, and linen burns. You smell like boiled velvet and slightly haunted roses. And yet you're lucky. Because unlike the lower classes, you at least have fabric to soak it up. Peasant women wear rougher materials, coarse wool, unlined linen, and no corset to catch the drips. Their sweat darkens the fabric in real time. They work in the fields, hauling and bending, and they do not get to pretend they smell like anything other than labor. You meanwhile glide. You wear gloves to mask your damp palms. You stand beneath fans made of ostrich feathers fluttered by bored servants. You refuse to sit if the chair is upholstered. You've seen what happens to a velvet cushion when a duchess forgets her linen pad. And if the sweating gets too bad, you leave. You declare yourself indisposed, retreat to your chambers, and remove just enough clothing to breathe without fainting. Then you sit by an open window with your arms lifted like a chicken airing out its wings. And yet all this sweating serves a strange, cruel purpose. It's proof. Proof that you're wearing what you're supposed to wear. Proof that you're present, visible, and fulfilling your societal obligation to melt with dignity. If you aren't drenched by dusk, are you even trying? The court gossips love a scent story. She was quite dewy, they'll whisper. Her perfume lingered, but so did something else. You'd rather die than be known as the lady with the sour trail. A nickname like that sticks for years. There's even a courtly trick you've mastered, leaning ever so slightly away during a curtsy to direct airflow. It works, sometimes. Of course, perfumes help. You reapply regularly. Orange blossom, jasmine, musk. Sometimes frankincense rubbed directly into your collarbone. It masks what needs masking for a while. But everyone still sweats. Kings, courtiers, choir boys. Even the queen, bless her powdery soul. She once fainted during a mass, likely from heat exhaustion, beneath 12 pounds of silk. She recovered, but her gown had to be burned. Too far gone. And so you endure. You sweat beneath pearls. You sweat through linen. You sweat with elegance. And when someone asks, "Aren't you warm in that gown?" you smile, tilt your head, and lie, "Not at all." Today is bath day. You'd think that would be good news. But in your world, bath day isn't a regular delight. It's a highly controversial, medically dubious, and spiritually suspicious event. Bathing, you see, is not fashionable. It's not even encouraged. It's feared. And yet, you must. So you prepare. Your maid fills the wooden tub, slowly pot by pot, ladled from the hearth. There is no running water, no pipes, no faucets, just patience and arm strength. You sit nearby, wrapped in a shawl, inhaling the rising steam with the trepidation of someone awaiting trial. The bath itself is a deep barrel bound in iron, lined with linen if you're lucky. It was last used by someone else in the palace, possibly a countess, possibly a stable boy. It's been rinsed, which means someone threw water through it and called it holy. You step in cautiously. The water is lukewarm. That's the safest temperature according to your physician. Too cold, and you risk humor imbalances. Too hot, and you might faint. Open your pores too widely, and let in disease. Ah, yes, the open pores theory. The leading medical minds of your time believe that disease travels through vapors or miasmas, invisible clouds of foul air that slip into your body through the skin when you bathe your pores open. Therefore, you are vulnerable. Water, especially warm water, is considered risky. It's a known fact, a widely believed superstition that overbathing causes everything from madness to infertility. Some theologians argue that frequent bathing invites vanity and distracts from spiritual reflection. Others say it stirs the blood and leads to sinful thoughts. One monk famously wrote that bathing too often weakened the soul. So you sit, awkward, anxious, naked, but wearing earrings because modesty must still be accessorized. Your maid pours rose water into the tub. It's meant to mask the natural scent of you. She dabs a cloth into the water and begins to scrub your arms, your back, behind your ears. The soap she uses is lye-based harsh and smells like ash and olives. It burns slightly. You pretend it doesn't. There is no shampoo, just more soap. Your scalp tingles as it's rubbed, then rinsed with a cup of tepid water. Some of the wig powder dissolves and floats in strange patterns across the water's surface like court gossip. You ask yourself, why even bother? The answer is ceremonial. You bathe before major feasts, before weddings, before portraits, not to clean, but to purify. Cleanliness is spiritual, not physical. And since everyone is equally ripe beneath the perfume, there's no pressure to be pristine, only pious. But still, you feel it. The unfamiliar sensation of warm water against skin that hasn't breathed in weeks. The way dirt peels off in ribbons. The strange relief of your knees emerging lighter, smoother. You sigh almost happily. Almost. Then, your maid accidentally lets the cloth slip, and it lands with a splash between your legs. Now it's awkward again. You rise carefully, dripping. The water is brownish now, a shadow of what once clung to you. Your maid throws a towel around your shoulders, and you are briskly dried like a stubborn piece of furniture. She rubs scented oil into your skin, myrrh and almond to seal the pores. She tuts at the redness beneath your corset line. You pretend you didn't hear her. You dress again. Slowly. New chemise, stiff corset, clean petticoats. The gown is refastened. You are bound and fragrant once more. And what of the water? It's emptied out the window into the courtyard below. A splash, a startled shout, and an unfortunate page boy now understands your hygiene routine more intimately than you'd like. You'll bathe again in a month. Maybe. Unless there's an emergency, like plague, or a royal decree. But let's not pretend bathing is common. In most weeks, you use a dry cloth and perfume, maybe a vinegar rub, maybe a little dusting powder under the arms. If you're especially progressive, you'll clean individual limbs on different days, arms, on Monday legs, on Wednesday feet, occasionally. There's a debate among scholars, of course, about how often people really bathed. Some argue nobles bathed more than we think, just not with full immersion. Others say the opposite, that even washing hands was rare, and bodies were seen as inherently impure. Either way, no one's reaching for a loofah. And public baths? Don't even think about it. Those are for the masses. The loud, steaming bathhouses of the cities are places of commerce, gossip, and sin. Royal women avoid them. You once read about a duchess who disguised herself and visited one. She came back with lice a rash and a scandal that lasted 6 seasons. So instead, you rely on routine, perfume, powder, prayer. You've built your cleanliness from illusion. You glow because you're oiled. You shimmer because you're powdered. You smell like jasmine and secrets. But beneath it all, beneath the silk and the ceremony, you are still a sweating, aching human in a world that fears its own flesh. Tonight you'll sleep freshly bathed. Tomorrow you'll begin again. And by next week, you'll stink just as sweetly as before. It's that time of the month. And no one will talk about it. Not your lady in waiting, not your physician, not even the priest who insists he knows everything about sin and the female form. You, however, have no choice but to deal with it, because you're bleeding, and you're expected to host a banquet in 4 hours. You are a royal woman, and menstruation, for all its biological normalcy, is your court's dirtiest secret. There are no pads, no tampons, no discreet little wrappers. There is instead a folded linen cloth, sometimes 2, if you're lucky, and a strong hope that your dress isn't too light in color. Your menstrual cloth is thick, hand-sewn, and tied in place with a ribbon belt that loops around your waist and through your legs. It's secure, more or less, until you walk, or laugh, or heaven forbid sneeze. Then all bets are off. You feel it. The warm shift. The subtle panic. But you smile and continue through the palace corridors with grace, because to acknowledge what's happening would be more offensive than bleeding through 6 layers of embroidered linen. At court, your period is not an inconvenience. It's a liability. There are whispers, of course. She's looking pale this week, someone might say. A little emotional, another will chime in. Must be that time. The men smirk. The women say nothing. Everyone knows, but no one knows. And the smell. Oh, the smell. You perfume everything. Your underthings, your chemise, even the cloth itself. Dried lavender, powdered rose, or camphor oil. Something sharp to mask the iron tang of blood. You've even heard of noble women stuffing dried herbs between their legs. Some swear by sage, others by marjoram. One lady used crushed violets. She left a trail. You take no chances. Every few hours you sneak away with your maid to rest. She brings a fresh cloth, warm water, and a basin. You kneel. She helps. Neither of you speak. The soiled linen is folded discreetly and set aside to be rinsed later by someone else. Not you. You will never see that cloth again, and you're grateful. Sometimes the cloth slips. Sometimes you bleed onto your chemise. Sometimes you bleed onto the chair. That happened once during a council meeting. You stood up too quickly and left behind a faint telltale shadow on the brocade cushion. A servant discreetly flipped the pillow. You never sat in that room again. There is no medical support. Your physician offers vague advice. Keep cool, eat less, avoid excitement. One suggested bloodletting to balance the humors. Another prescribed crushed coral steeped in goat's milk. You tried it. You vomited. He apologized, kind of. The church has opinions too. You are considered unclean during your period, spiritually impure. You're forbidden from taking communion, touching sacred objects, or technically entering holy spaces. One priest told you that a menstruating woman could sour the altar wine just by looking at it. You asked him if that applied to royal blood. He did not answer. You have been accused of witchcraft twice, both times during menstruation. Coincidence? You don't think so. But let's talk about cramps. They strike without warning. Low twisting pain that coils around your belly like a vindictive snake. You double over in silence. You clench your fists. You walk it off pretending nothing is wrong. Your face never flinches. But inside, you are a bonfire of cramps and quiet fury. Your remedies? Warm cloths, herbal teas, a hot brick wrapped in flannel, a lullaby sung by your maid. None of it works, but pretending helps. You avoid men. Not because you want to, but because your mood is unpredictable, your scent is distracting, and your blood is considered a form of ancient chaos. You once overheard a physician say that menstrual blood could wither flowers. He said it with such confidence you almost believed him. And yet, you go on. You dance. You dine. You smile. Even as you feel the slow, steady leak beneath your gown. Even as you clench your thighs while walking. Even as you excuse yourself to go pray while gripping the side of a hallway table for balance. The other women know. They give you a look, a nod, a hand squeeze, a scented cloth passed discreetly under the table. No words, just sisterhood. There's one chambermaid who keeps extra cloths hidden in her apron. You once gave her a bracelet for saving you during a hunt when your linen belt snapped mid-gallop. She never told a soul. She's your favorite now. You might give her a cottage. As for stains, you don't ask. Your maids scrub. Hard. Blood doesn't always come out, especially not after drying. You've sacrificed at least 3 gowns to this ritual. One of them was silk. You cried. Your physician said it was the hormones. You said it was grief. Some scholars today wonder what women did with all those cloths. The answer is they boiled them, or buried them, or burned them, or if they were poor, reused them until they disintegrated. There is debate, were medieval period products truly effective? Were they worn at all times? Were women just free bleeding under layers of linen? You don't know. You just know what you've been taught. Hide it, suffer it, survive it, and never ever bleed where the king might see. At night, you sleep with your knees pulled tight, one hand pressed to your belly. You dream of warm baths, soft cloth, and a world where menstruation doesn't make you an omen. But for now, you're royal. You don't complain. You bleed. Quietly. With grace. You are seated in the drawing room posture. Perfect skirts, artfully fanned chin, slightly lifted, and your scalp is crawling. You want nothing more than to scratch. Violently. With both hands. Possibly with a fork. But instead, you sip lavender tea and smile like you've never known discomfort in your life. This is royal lice etiquette, because everyone has them. Everyone. From the queen herself to the kitchen maid, lice are the invisible guests of court, uninvited, unwanted, but stubbornly loyal. And in this palace, where hair is rarely washed and wigs are rarely laundered, they thrive. You have learned not to scratch in public. Scratching is undignified. It signals weakness. It suggests a lapse in hygiene, or worse, in nobility. So you endure the itch like a soldier. Your face is serene. Your scalp is chaos. Under your wig, it's a war zone. The lice scuttle freely through the padded silk lining, nesting in the seams, laying eggs in the powdered tangles of your real hair beneath. You once found a dead one on your pillow and nearly fainted. You haven't slept well since. Your maids try to help. There is a special comb, fine-toothed carved from bone. It's used weekly. You sit on a stool while your hair is picked through like a battlefield after the storm. The comb pulls out eggs, nymphs adults, some alive, some very much not. Your maid is gentle, mostly. Sometimes she winces. You pretend not to see. The lice are persistent. You've tried the usual remedies: vinegar, rinses, oil rubs, powdered herbs. Nothing sticks. You even let your physician try a modern treatment involving mercury paste. You lost a patch of skin behind your ear. Never again. At court, everyone knows not to comment. But there are signs: the stiff posture, the constant head tilts, the sudden gasp when a rogue bug crosses into view. One duchess famously flicked a louse off her glove, mid-dance. She claimed it was a crumb. No one believed her. Your wig is inspected weekly. If the infestation is bad, it's taken away and purified. This means it's shaken violently, out a window, smoked with rosemary, and beaten with sticks by the lower maids. You imagine them cursing your name as they do it. But here's the real secret. Sometimes it helps to talk. There's a quiet kind of solidarity among the women of court. A shared glance, a raised eyebrow, a whispered "you too" in the corridor. You once caught the Queen Mother scratching beneath her bonnet during Mass. She caught your eye and winked. The official solution is shaving. Many noble women beneath the wigs and veils are bald or nearly so. It's easier, cleaner. But you cling to your real hair, a tangle of duty and vanity. You grew it for years. You're not ready to give it up. Not yet. Besides, baldness comes with its own risks. Wigs itch more against bare skin. Sweat collects. Sores form. One lady grew a rash shaped exactly like the wig she wore every day for a decade. She now applies ointment in the shape of a halo. And then there's the court artist. You once sat for a portrait with lice crawling beneath your temples. You didn't move. You didn't blink. You held your smile for hours. When the painting was revealed, your expression was so tight, so haunted, that the bishop asked if it was meant to depict martyrdom. You didn't correct him. There's an argument, quiet, scholarly, unresolved, that lice were seen differently then. Not as symbols of filth, but of closeness, of life. Some claimed they were creatures of warmth, drawn to vitality. Some saw them as reminders of humility, like ashes on the forehead. A few very odd clerics believed that lice served as divine punishment for pride. You've met those clerics. You avoid them. At night, you remove your wig with a sigh. You shake it gently. One or two tiny corpses fall out. You set it on its stand and comb your own hair slowly, carefully. The lice scatter. You imagine them whispering, regrouping, plotting. You dab clove oil on your scalp. You wrap your head in linen. You pray. You consider shaving. Again. But you don't. You are royal. You suffer. And you do it with elegance. Tomorrow you'll wear a higher wig. More powder. A tighter ribbon across the temples. No one will know, except every other woman in the room who is smiling and scratching silently behind her fan. You are draped across a fainting couch in your private chamber, limbs, heavy hair stiff with powder, and an expression of polite agony as your corset is slowly, finally being unlaced. The strings creak. Your ribs sigh. Blood floods into places it hasn't reached in hours. Welcome to the daily disrobing of a royal woman. Getting dressed takes an hour. Getting undressed, about the same. Because in your world, removing clothing is not just a matter of comfort, it's a ritual. A delicate, embarrassing, deeply inconvenient dance of fabric assistance and physical resistance. And you don't do it alone. At least 2 maids attend you, sometimes 3. They begin at the back, gently undoing hooks, buttons, and laces with the solemnity of monks handling relics. Your gown is peeled away layer by layer like an onion of status and sweat. First comes the overskirt, heavy with embroidery and the scent of waxed floors. Then the underskirt. Then the petticoats. 1, 2, sometimes 4 if you're appearing especially grand that day. Then the corset. Ah, yes, your beloved tormentor. Made of whalebone, reinforced with wood or metal stays, and laced so tight you can't sneeze without summoning a maid and a prayer. It's cut to mold your waist into fashionable submission and elevate your chest into architectural display. Breathing is optional. Posture is not. Unlacing takes time. One of your maids holds the strings, the other braces your shoulders. You stand arms extended as the pressure slowly loosens and your body returns to its natural squishier state. Your ribs feel like they're reinflating. You've nearly fainted from the release before. Once you passed out entirely and hit your head on the side table. A nobleman thought it was a swoon of love. You didn't correct him. With the corset gone, your chemise flops forward, damp under the arms and crumpled at the waist. Your body underneath is red with crease marks, bruised at the ribs, and slightly misshapen from the day's compression. You look like a map of tension. Then come the stockings, rolled down carefully. They're secured by ribbon garters, pretty, but completely ineffective. One once slipped mid-curtsy. You stepped on it. You fell. You never wore pale green again. By the time you're down to your shift, you are exhausted. But you're not done. The makeup must come off. Your face has been a canvas of lead-based powder rouge and eyebrow soot all day. You sit by the mirror. Your maid brings vinegar water, a cloth, and silent judgment. She begins to dab gently. The powder comes away in streaks. Beneath it, blotchy skin, dry patches, and the occasional angry red welt. You look like a peeled fruit. You do not smile. Once you tried cold cream. It clogged your pores for a week. Another time you tried egg whites. They smelled like betrayal. Now you stick with rose water, a soft cloth, and denial. Your wig is removed and brushed. Your hair is unpinned, unwound, and oiled. You hate the way it feels, limp, flat, and faintly sticky. Your scalp still itches from the powder. A flea jumps from your shoulder to the bedpost. You pretend not to notice. A fresh linen shift is offered. You step into it with a grunt. This is your sleeping garment, stiff plain, and long enough to trip over in the dark. It smells faintly of lavender and centuries of sorrow. You sit on the edge of your bed, feet dangling like a tired child. Your maid kneels to massage your calves. They ache. Then comes the final indignity, the nightly cloth. If you're menstruating, you wear it. If not, you still wear one because accidents happen and mattresses are expensive. The belt is tied. The cloth is adjusted. You sigh. You climb into bed stiffly. The sheets are cold. The canopy above you is so low, it feels like a coffin lid. You lie flat arms folded and whisper a half-hearted prayer for peaceful sleep and 0 cramps. Outside, the wind whistles. Inside, your corset hangs on its hook like a ghost of pressure past. There is, of course, debate among historians about how frequently noble women truly disrobed to this degree. Some claim gowns were often left partially on corsets loosened, but not removed shifts, reused for days. Others argue for a full nightly routine. The truth likely lies in between enough discomfort to justify the size, enough routine to normalize the suffering. And what of husbands? If you're married, the disrobing becomes shared. Your husband arrives after dinner, red-cheeked from wine smelling of venison and entitlement. He may expect company. You oblige, or you pretend to have a headache and pray he finds someone else to impress with his war stories. He may disrobe too. He smells worse than you. Eventually, silence settles. You lie still stiff in your shift, listening to the quiet. Somewhere nearby, a mouse scuttles behind the wainscot. Somewhere far off, a servant laughs. Your wig sits on its stand like a powdery sentinel. And finally, your body relaxes. For the first time all day, there are no pins, no lace, no stays, no posture. Just you flattened into a bed that's harder than it looks, breathing into the still air, like a woman who has survived another royal performance. You close your eyes, and in the faintest whisper of sleep, your ribs say, "Thank you." You ascend your ivory throne, elegant, shimmering, perfumed. Every gesture is poised, every ribbon and ruffle just right. Except one detail, your gloves. Royal gloves were not merely fashion statements. They were survival tools. Perfume gloves and stained hands, that was royal hygiene in a glove. You've learned the hard way that bare hands risk disaster. Wash them too often. You weaken the leather gloves, your one defense against damp velvet-scented pomanders. Your hands would reek of boredom, not roses. Worse, you'd lose the ghost of your manicure. So you never wash your hands, literally. Instead, each morning, a maid applies a luxurious ointment, almond oil, rose water, a drop of musk. You slide into your silk gloves. You're protected. Invisible shield. Your hands stay soft, floral-scented, and untouched by the drudgery of hand washing. But then the evening comes, a banquet, a greeting, a handshake. Your gloves absorb whispers and crumbs. They bear the faint trace of wine, of. By candlelight, your fingers still hint of garlic and intrigue. When you remove them, the scent blooms. You don't wash too risky. You air them, slip them back on, and cross your fingers literally. Bath time again, except this time, you're not alone. Today's ordeal isn't just personal hygiene, it's public performance. It's gossip and hierarchy, soaked in lukewarm water. It's a shared bath, and it's every bit as awkward as it sounds. The room is drafty, lined in stone, and echoing with the splash of limbs and forced laughter. A large wooden tub sits in the center, steam rising faintly like a spirit losing interest. You stand by the door, wrapped in a towel, silently regretting every decision that led to this moment. It was the Queen's idea, of course. A communal cleansing to mark the arrival of spring. How quaint, how ancient Roman, how horrifying. The First Lady slips into the tub with a practiced sigh. She's older, sharper, and used to commanding the room whether clothed or submerged. The others follow. You are fourth. Just early enough to avoid the tepid leftovers, just late enough to be forced into polite conversation. The water is already gray. You lower yourself in with grace. The surface is warm, but not clean. There are suds, bits. You try not to look too closely. There's no soap bar passed around. Instead, the water is infused with herbs, chamomile, lavender, mint. They float on top like forgotten salad. Occasionally, someone adds a splash of rose water. You'd need a gallon to make a dent in the underlying scent, stale sweat, wet wood, and generational mildew. No one speaks of what happens beneath the surface. Instead, you chat about the harvest, about the prince's new falcon, about whether silkworms truly dream. You nod, smile, pretend you're not acutely aware that someone's foot just touched yours. There is a strict code to follow. You do not stand suddenly. You do not comment on temperature. You do not, under any circumstances, mention what you've just felt brush against your calf. And yet these baths are customary, even fashionable. In some circles, a shared soak is a show of intimacy. Political alliances are forged in these waters, secrets traded, scandals born. You once heard a baroness reveal her pregnancy mid-rinse. The water turned noticeably still after that. There's debate, of course, about how common communal bathing was for noblewomen. Some scholars argue it was rare, a luxury reserved for spa towns or royal retreats. Others say it was semi-regular, more ritual than necessity. You're inclined to believe the latter. Nothing this uncomfortable happens only once. You glance across the tub. One woman is shaving her arms with a shell. Another is scrubbing her feet with what appears to be a loaf of stale bread. You pretend not to notice. You reach for your sponge linen wrapped around moss and begin to dab gently at your shoulders. You don't dare submerge your head. Your hair is powdered, styled, anchored with ribbons and prayer. Getting it wet would mean hours of repowdering and reshaping. You keep your chin high, like a queen awaiting execution. The water darkens. A maid approaches with a fresh pitcher, pours it over your shoulders. It is slightly warmer, slightly less gray. You nod politely. She curtsies and backs away like she just poured sacred wine. But the water never gets cleaner. It only gets fuller. Eventually, it's time to rise. You do so carefully, using the side of the tub and the strength of your trembling thighs. The air hits your skin like ice. You shiver. A servant rushes to wrap you in a towel. It's scratchy but dry. You step aside for the next woman, who eyes the tub like a condemned soul. You sit by the hearth. A maid combs oil through your arms. You watch the others finish. Some laugh. Some grimace. One whispers a prayer. You are all slightly pink, slightly pruny, and still faintly filthy. Because here's the truth, the bath doesn't clean you. Not really. It's symbolic. It's about being seen bathing, about participating, about sharing the performance of hygiene, whether or not your body comes out any better than it went in. You dress again, slipping into fresh layers that immediately begin to reabsorb the moisture from your still damp limbs. You reapply perfume. You tighten your corset. You smile. You are now clean, at least socially. And tomorrow, you'll itch again. You're walking slowly down the gallery, gloved hands, clasped before you, head held high, and all you can think about is your shoes. The pinch, the pressure, the fact that your left big toe has likely given up on survival. Let's talk about your feet and the suffering you endure to keep them refined. Royal shoes are not made for walking. They are declarations, sculptures, torture devices disguised as fashion. Most are made of leather or silk dyed to match your gowns, stiff as dried parchment, and about half a size too small, because small feet are in. The smaller, the daintier. The daintier, the more virtuous. Or so they say. You were measured for your shoes by a cobbler who didn't once ask if you planned to stand in them. He presented the pair on a velvet cushion like sacred relics. You tried them on, smiled politely, and lost all feeling in your toes within 3 minutes. You wear them anyway, because going barefoot or even wearing comfortable shoes is unthinkable. That's what peasants do. You are nobility. Your dignity begins at the ankle. And what of socks? You have silk stockings, sure, delicate, expensive, absurd. They slide down by midday, bunch around your knees, and become moist with sweat by afternoon. You tie them up with garters that cut into your thighs like lacy shackles. You once walked across the garden maze for a midday stroll. By the time you returned, your stockings were mud-stained, your shoes ruined, and your heels blistered. The Chamberlain still talks about it. And when it rains, mud everywhere. Royal estates are built on beauty, not drainage. Water pools in the gravel paths, leaks into the great halls. You once slipped on a puddle in the East Corridor and landed in the arms of a minor duke. He proposed. You declined. Inside the floors are no better. Marble is elegant, but cold and slick. Carpets are rare and mostly decorative. You shuffle carefully, adjusting your gait to keep from skidding like a clumsy pheasant. Your posture must be perfect. Your steps must be small. You are basically tiptoeing across polished danger in shoes made by someone who hates women. Sometimes you wear pattens, raised wooden platforms strapped beneath your shoes to keep them out of the filth. These are wobbly at best, and if you don't have excellent balance, you'll topple like a decorative vase. And heaven forbid you remove your shoes in public. You did that once during a carriage ride, just for a moment, to let your swollen toes breathe. A maid screamed. The footman looked away in horror. The bishop made the sign of the cross. Because your feet, they smell. Not because you're dirty, but because your shoes trap everything sweat powder, perfume, and the faint whiff of whatever you stepped in last Tuesday. You've tried airing them out. You've tried stuffing them with dried petals. One maid tried sage. It helped briefly, but made your feet smell like roasted chicken. You once read that some ladies soak their feet in wine to restore grace. You tried it. It tickled. And it felt like a waste of perfectly good claret. There's also the question of foot washing. It's rare. Not because it isn't needed, but because it's complicated. Removing your shoes requires assistance. Removing your stockings involves a level of intimacy you're rarely willing to endure. But when you do, oh, the joy, the relief, the freedom of bare toes on cold stone. Until you remember that stone isn't cleaned regularly and may or may not be host to last week's chamber pot overflow. So back go the stockings. On go the shoes. And you pretend everything's fine. Some scholars argue that noblewomen had footmen specifically to tend to their feet. Others suggest that the aristocracy avoided thinking about their feet entirely. You think both are true. Your feet are a source of status and shame. Beautiful, in theory, battered in reality. You've seen the toes of older noblewomen, crooked, calloused. One had a toe amputated after a shoe mishap involving candle wax and a wine jug. She now wears velvet slippers and calls it fashion. And yet, despite it all, you persist. You don't flinch when your heel splits. You don't cry when your soul rubs raw. You glide across the ballroom as if your feet aren't actively begging for release. Because you are a royal woman. Your pain is invisible. Your suffering silent. And your shoes always perfect, especially when they're not. You awaken to bells, gentle, distant, but unmistakably urgent. It's time for Mass. Again. And while you'd love to sleep through it, your soul and your social standing requires attendance. So you rise, groaning softly, and begin the process of preparing for worship. But this isn't about repentance or piety. This is about spiritual hygiene and what it meant to scrub your soul while your body festered quietly beneath your gown. The court is religious, intensely so, not always sincerely, but consistently. God sees all, especially if you forget to bow at the right moment or sneeze during the homily. You slip into your Sunday gown, heavier, darker embroidered with symbols that scream devotion. Crosses stitched in gold thread, angels circling your collar. It's beautiful. It's suffocating. It smells faintly of incense and mothballs. Before you go, your maid applies holy water behind your ears. It's really just rose water, with a few blessed drops mixed in. But everyone pretends it purifies more than just your skin. You also dab some on your wrists, like perfume. This is not required. But court fashion loves a scented saint. You enter the chapel. It's dim, cold. The air is thick with frankincense and unspoken guilt. You file in with the other noble women, kneel stiffly, and try not to pass out in your corset. And yet this is where your cleanliness is most judged. Not by your body. God forbid anyone acknowledge that, but by your behavior, your posture, your tears, your piety. Wipe your eyes during the homily. You're a woman of deep feeling. Fall asleep during psalms. You're whispered about for weeks. This is your weekly baptism by performance. Some women carry prayer books filled with pressed herbs. Others sneak in pomanders, tiny balls of scented wax on chains to press against their noses, not because they're overwhelmed by devotion, but because the person next to them hasn't bathed since Lent. You once used one to block the scent of your own shoes. Communion is awkward. Technically, you're not supposed to take it during your period. Spiritually unclean, remember. But skipping it draws attention, so you pretend. You shuffle forward. You receive the wafer with bowed head, hoping no one is counting your cycles. Confession is worse. You kneel behind the screen, heart pounding. You've prepared your sins. Some are real. Most are carefully edited. You mention pride, maybe envy, never lust, never fatigue, never the time you threw a shoe at your maid for bringing lukewarm wine. The priest mutters penance. You nod. You exit. You are now clean. Spiritually anyway, this illusion of purity follows you back into court life. Everyone plays the game. Everyone pretends. You once saw a countess slap her maid for wrinkling her veil, then spend 45 minutes crying in the chapel about her short temper. She was praised for her honesty. The maid was reassigned to the stables, and yet there's a strange comfort here, in this shared performance, in the incense and the hymns, in the soft glow of candles flickering across velvet robes and teary cheeks. It's the only place where all smells are forgiven, masked by smoke and sanctity. Even the queen once burped during a hymn. No one spoke of it, ever. You leave the chapel with a clean soul, and the same dirty chemise you arrived in, but you walk taller. You feel purified, not from water, not from soap, but from ritual. There's ongoing debate among historians about how much the church influenced hygiene. Some claim it hindered physical cleanliness, prioritizing soul over skin. Others say it encouraged bathing, at least symbolically. You say both. The body was suspect. The soul was savable. And for women like you, that meant layers of lace prayer and quiet restraint. Tonight you'll sin again. Maybe with gossip. Maybe with wine. Maybe just by longing for hot water and solitude. But for now, you are clean, holy, polished, untouched, at least where anyone can see. Your chamber is quiet. The fire crackles softly, and your maids have finally gone. You sit before the mirror, alone finally, and stare at yourself, trying to remember what your face used to look like before it became a canvas. Tonight, like every night, it's time to reapply your mask, not a metaphor. A literal cosmetic mask, thick and pale, made from ingredients better suited for alchemy than skincare. Let's start with the base ceruse, a luxurious, deadly blend of white lead and vinegar patted gently onto your skin with a rabbit pelt puff. It gives your face that iconic, ghostly pallor, the fashionable sign of nobility wealth and utter fragility. If your complexion hints at sunlight or health, people might mistake you for someone who works. And we can't have that. The ceruse burns a little, sometimes a lot. Your skin has begun to peel in places, and there's a sore just above your jawline that refuses to heal. But you keep applying, because beauty is not for the living. It is for the admired. Next comes the rouge, crushed cochineal mixed with a bit of grease, maybe even mercury salts if your apothecary is feeling generous. It reddens your cheeks with the subtlety of a startled goose. You apply just enough to look delicate. Too much, and people talk. Too little, and they worry you're sick. And the lips vermilion. A bold, toxic flourish that whispers, "I suffer for this." You once tasted it by accident and couldn't feel your tongue for an hour. Brows are darkened with soot lashes with ash and oil. You've heard of women plucking all their eyelashes and drawing them back in with ink. You are not that brave. Yet. Some women even glue mouse fur to their foreheads to fake thicker brows. You tried it once, never again. Your skin is itchy. Your lips crack beneath the vermilion. Your nose runs a little. You blot it and reapply. Always reapply. Because beneath it all, you're not meant to be seen. You're meant to be perceived by candlelight from a distance, softened by silk and illusion. No one wants to know what you really look like, not even you. You've heard rumors noble women poisoned by their own beauty, slow lead absorption, blurred vision, fainting spells. One lady lost most of her hair. Another went blind in one eye. You've noticed your own gums bleeding a little more than usual. Still, you paint, because this is how you participate in power. At court, beauty is not optional. It is currency. You buy influence with your blush. You negotiate with your gaze. A well-timed flutter of your powdered lashes can change the course of a marriage proposal or a war. There are debates, of course. Some scholars today argue that noble women knew the dangers, that they used these products not out of ignorance but defiance. Others say they were simply victims of fashion, trapped in a toxic beauty cycle they couldn't escape. You think both. You know what ceruse is. You've seen what it does. But you apply it anyway. Because going barefaced is worse. It would be seen as rebellious. Or lazy. Or worse, old. Even at 16, you were told to enhance your features. Now, in your 20s, you are expected to preserve them. In your 30s, you will conceal the cracks. After that, you will fade, quietly, with dignity. Unless, of course, you have enough rouge. Tonight, you will sleep sitting up. To protect the powder, to avoid pillow stains, to keep your mask intact just in case someone important arrives unannounced. This has happened. Once a prince knocked at your chamber in the middle of the night. You answered the door with half your face melted into your collar. He left quickly. Your maids complain about the makeup stains. The towels, the sheets, the combs, all ruined. But you don't care. You are the face of royalty, of pain disguised as poise. And tomorrow, you'll start again. More powder, more rouge, a new sore perhaps, and always a smile. Even when it stings, you're exhausted. Your body aches from a day of public smiling, secret sweating, and 37 consecutive curtsies. You peel off your outermost gown, step over the dog curled near your hearth, and glance longingly toward your bed. your velvet-draped feather-stuffed oasis. It looks soft, luxurious, inviting. It's not, because your royal bed, for all its embroidered splendor and perfume sheets, is a deceptive haven. Beneath the silks and lace lies a world of dampness mites and scent-masked mildew that not even your rank can escape. Let's start with the sheets. They're linen high quality and changed occasionally, not daily, not weekly. Once every few weeks, if you're fortunate, or if something visibly unfortunate occurs. You lie down knowing that the scent of lavender hides more than it reveals. Beneath the sheet is the mattress, a massive sack stuffed with feathers wool, or, if you're truly cursed, straw. These beds are never aired out properly. Why would they be your royalty? Your room is drafty. Opening windows is unseemly and invites suspicion. So the moisture from your body, sweat, perfume, sometimes worse, gets trapped inside. You've grown used to the faint whiff of rot. Your maid attempts to help. She sprinkles dried herbs beneath the sheet, sage, mint, dried rose petals. One summer, she added dried orange peel. The mice loved it. You found one in your pillow. And pillows? Let's talk. Your pillows are overstuffed, lumpy, and inexplicably damp at the center. No one knows why. They smell of old feathers, and the perfume sachet sewn inside has long since surrendered. You dream. In smells wax hair oil, the odd undernote of despair. Your headboard is carved wood, beautiful, and utterly infested with hidden spiders. You don't complain. Last time you did, they replaced it with one that squeaked every time you exhaled. You pick your battles, and the coverlet, it's heavy, decorative, not especially warm. In winter, you add furs, pelts of fox ermine, something rare that smells faintly of musk and smoke. These are never washed, ever. You share your warmth with whatever insects survive the tanning process. Sometimes you sleep under your cloak instead. It's less cursed. There's an ongoing scholarly debate about medieval and early modern bedding. Some insist nobles slept in rotating shifts with their linens aired and replaced weekly. Others point to preserved accounts describing noble beds, teeming with lice soaked with night sweat and perfumed into denial. You live firmly in the second camp. You have seen your sheets. Let's not forget the canopy. Ah, yes, the glorious bed canopy. Thick velvet edged with gold braid meant to display wealth and shield you from drafts. In reality, it traps heat dust and the occasional wasp. In summer, it's a slow-cooking meat tent. In winter, it sags with condensation. One morning, you woke with a bat trapped inside it. You named her Florence. She stayed a week. But your bed isn't always yours alone. If you're married, your husband joins you, snoring, sweating occasionally, muttering Latin in his sleep. His feet are cold. His breath is worse. He hogs the blanket, and once in a fit of nocturnal confusion attempted to kiss your wig. If you're unmarried, you still aren't alone. Ladies-in-waiting sometimes sleep in adjoining alcoves. One of them talks in her sleep. Another chews her hair. You pretend not to hear. And then there are the uninvited. Mice, lice, fleas, bedbugs. Your chamber is swept daily, but the critters remain. They live in the mattress seams, in the wooden joints, in the fur throws. You've seen the bites on your ankles. You've crushed lice between your fingernails. You once slapped a flea so hard it left a bruise. The bed is not safe, but it is expected, so you climb in carefully. You lie on your back, stiff arms, resting across your torso, like a gently poisoned mummy. You do not roll. You do not sprawl. Royal sleeping posture is a learned art restful, composed, ready to appear angelic should you die suddenly in the night. You whisper a prayer, you close your eyes, and then the creaking starts. The frame groans. A draft slips beneath the sheets. Your scalp itches. Your feet are somehow colder than your nose. You shift slightly, and a distant squeak answers you. Something moves in the thatch overhead. You try not to think about Florence. Your dreams are strange, always. Filled with scented wigs, burning candles, faceless priests, and melting makeup. Once you dreamed, your bed grew teeth and swallowed your husband whole. You woke smiling. In the morning, you rise slowly. The sheet clings. Your chemise is damp at the back. You are not well rested, but you look beautiful in the morning light. Pale, composed, noble. Your bed, though, it smells like secrets. You pull the drapes closed and pretend you didn't notice. Your hair is stiff, powdered, heavy with perfume soot and memory. It hasn't been washed in 2 weeks, or maybe 3. You've lost count. But today's not a washing day. It's bloodletting day. Because in your royal world, when the body falls out of balance, you don't reach for a bath. You reach for a basin and a blade. Welcome to the royal tradition of hygienic bloodletting, that time-honored cure for nearly everything, including fatigue, fever, melancholy, menstrual cramps, and somehow bad dreams. You hate it. You sit in the treatment chamber gown, loosened arm bare, pretending not to tremble as the physician sharpens his lancet. The room smells of iron and lavender blood and denial. A fire crackles in the corner, not for warmth, for sterilization. Though nothing is truly sterile here. You're told you have too much heat in your blood, too much moisture, too much passion. Today's procedure will drain the excess, calm your spirit, brighten your skin. They say the best blood is taken during the full moon. You don't ask why. You stopped asking questions after the leeches. Ah, yes, the leeches. You've met them before. Black, wriggling, always damp, kept in a little jar by the apothecary. Their job is to suck just enough of you to make you balanced. One once escaped onto your slipper. You screamed loud enough to startle the horses. But today, it's the blade. The physician finds the right vein. Your maid holds your other hand. You look away. The pinch is quick. The warmth is immediate. Blood drips into a porcelain bowl. You try not to watch. You're lightheaded within minutes. You're told this is a good sign. The bad humors are leaving. The physician murmurs. You smile faintly and resist the urge to vomit. There's a bowl just in case. The bleeding lasts 5 minutes, then 10. Your vision blurs. You're told to sip broth, to rest, to be grateful. Grateful for what? The dizziness, the permanent bruise on your forearm, the fact that you now smell slightly of old coins. Afterward, they bandage your arm with lace and herbs. You're not allowed to bathe for 3 days, lest the pores invite disease. You weren't planning to bathe anyway. But here's the twist. This was for your skin. That's right. Today's bloodletting wasn't even about illness. It was cosmetic. You're a little pale now, a little weaker, but you'll glow tonight at dinner, not from rouge, from the divine flush of slight anemia. It's a trend. Other women are doing it. One countess bleeds monthly, like a spiritual hobby. Another swears it cured her migraines. You've heard rumors that the Queen Mother was bled before every royal audience to soften her gaze. There is debate naturally. Some modern scholars say noble women were bled far more often than necessary. Others insist it was mostly for show, rarely deep enough to do damage. You think both are wrong. You've seen the stains. But what about your hair? Well, it still hasn't been washed. Because here's the thing. Bloodletting, for all its drama, is considered more urgent than shampoo. When your scalp itches, you powder it. When your hair mats, you braid it tighter. When a mouse builds a nest in your wig, it happened once you thank it for the company. Hair is rarely cleaned with water. Instead, it's dusted, perfumed, and occasionally oiled. You once tried rinsing your head with rainwater. You caught a cold that turned into a sermon. Your real hair is braided close to your scalp and hidden beneath a padded wig. That wig absorbs the powder. The powder absorbs the oil. The oil traps the scent. The scent keeps the lice confused. Sometimes you use dry flour as shampoo. Sometimes ashes. You've seen court ladies brush their wigs for an hour and call it bathing. You once lit incense and waved it through your curls, hoping the smoke would neutralize whatever lived there. But there's no time for that today. Today your blood was drawn. Your soul is purified. Your color slightly ghostly. You wobble back to your chamber, clutching your bandaged arm and silently begging your reflection not to pass out. You won't eat much tonight. Maybe some broth? Maybe fruit. Your stomach is tender. Your hands tremble slightly. You feel a little cleaner, but only inside. And that apparently is what matters. Because in this world, physical hygiene is secondary. Symbolic cleanliness is everything. And nothing says noble purity like bleeding into a porcelain bowl while your hair quietly rots beneath a powdered crown. It's early evening, and you're not alone. You rarely are. Not even now, perched at your writing desk, feather quill in hand, pretending to compose poetry, when really you're listening. Behind the curtain, by the hearth, in the shadowed corners of your chamber, someone is always there. Your maid, your chaperone, a sister, a courtier, sometimes all of them. Because as a royal woman, privacy is a myth. Your life is lived in layers of lace, of hierarchy, of scrutiny. You are watched, measured, interpreted. Every movement is a ripple through 100 pairs of eyes, maids' guards, priests' rivals, each with an opinion, each with ears. You tried once to be alone. You slipped away to the gardens, past the reflecting pond, down to the orchard wall. You sat beneath a fig tree and dared to remove your gloves. The breeze kissed your wrists. It was glorious. You were spotted within 7 minutes. A footman reported your location. A lady-in-waiting was sent to escort you back. By dinner, it was the day's hottest gossip. She was barefoot. She was crying. She was seen smiling at a duck. You learned quickly. Now, even in your most personal moments, washing, dressing, bleeding, praying, you are accompanied. At night, a maid dozes near your bed. When you're ill, someone holds the bowl. When you write, someone peeks. Once during confession, the priest coughed pointedly when you paused too long. You can't even sin in solitude. Your letters are not safe. You write with practiced restraint. Every word could be read, every page copied. You've mastered the art of hidden meaning poetry, laced with codes, metaphors that whisper across ink. A flower isn't just a flower. A storm isn't just weather. You once wrote a love letter using only metaphors about falconry. It worked. Mostly. There's no room for secrets in your chambers. They are swept daily, not just for dust, but for contraband. Hidden notes. Gifts. Evidence. You once had a single ribbon confiscated because it was too suggestive. It was ivory. The danger. It matched a duke's sash. Even your body isn't yours. The physician reports on your health to others. Your mother, your husband, your priest. They know when you've missed a cycle before you do. They know when your appetite dips, when your sleep breaks. Your dreams, if spoken aloud, are not dreams. They are analyzed, interpreted, used. Your perfume is debated. Your meals are observed. Your expressions are documented in private diaries you'll never read. And what about your servants? They see everything. They know the exact spot where your corset leaves bruises, the sound you make when you remove your shoes, the way you sniff when nervous. They've seen your wig fall off. They've seen your blood, your body, your doubt. You trust them somewhat, but even loyalty can be traded. Information, after all, is the court's favorite currency. Once, a maid was bribed with a silver spoon to report whether your stomach was rounder than usual. She lied, said you looked pale. The result, a week of boiled cabbage and tense glances from the Queen Mother. There is, of course, debate about how much surveillance royal women truly endured. Some argue that they had pockets of solitude, moments in gardens, libraries, chapels. Others say privacy was entirely performative, that even the idea of solitude was another layer of courtly control. You say there are no secrets, only better disguises, and your best disguise, obedience. You appear calm, composed, reassuring. You speak gently, smile appropriately, tilt your head just enough to seem curious, never threatening. You listen more than you speak. But inside, you are full of locked rooms. Rooms no one has entered. Rooms filled with rage and grief and sarcasm, with unspoken opinions, with memories of who you were before the watching began. At night, you sometimes stare into the fire, daring it to speak your name aloud, to burn your mask, to give you just one moment of raw, unsupervised existence. It never does. So you sigh. Stand. Let the maid brush out your hair. Let her speak softly about the rain and the wine and the new falcon in the prince's aviary. You nod. You do not tell her that you miss the duck. You're seated in the morning salon, delicately sipping watered wine, while a maid fusses over your lapdog, brushing his fur, with more reverence than she's ever shown your hair. He yawns, bored and perfumed. You, on the other hand, haven't bathed in 6 days. But your dog. He smells like violets and sandalwood. Welcome to the royal paradox of pet hygiene outranking your own. Your lapdog, a small yappy thing, with more titles than some barons, is bathed weekly in rose water and goat milk. He has his own towel, his own brush, sometimes even a little bonnet for warmth. You've been told bathing could open your pores to disease. You dab, you perfume, you spritz, but a proper bath, that's for the desperate. Your cat, too. One of several that roam your chambers like disdainful gods, is occasionally subjected to grooming. It's more symbolic than effective. The maid wets a cloth with herbs, wipes her back once, and declares her clean. The cat retaliates by shedding in your wig. Still, these animals are adored. Not because they're useful, though the cat does chase the occasional rat, but because they are symbols of refinement, of softness, of wealth so excessive you can afford to perfume something that licks its own rear. Your dog has a name longer than your title. He eats better than your servants, sometimes better than you. He has meat most days. You do not. There's a courtier who swears her spaniel only drinks watered claret. Another claims her greyhound won't eat unless music is playing. You once tried to feed your dog venison. He sneezed dramatically and walked away. The kitchen boy was punished for offending his palate. Meanwhile, you nibble stale bread in silence. But your animals are not just decoration. They're comfort, companions. You whisper secrets to your dog at night. He listens. He doesn't judge. He doesn't report back to your mother. or the bishop, or your rival with the velvet eyebrows. Your cat, less loyal, occasionally stares at you like she's seen your tax records. Still, she sleeps on your pillow. There's scholarly debate about how widespread pet ownership truly was among noblewomen. Some claim it was a luxury limited to queens and duchesses. Others point to countless portraits, tiny dogs peeking out from beneath skirts, lounging on velvet, snarling at invisible peasants. You think they were everywhere, like perfume, like lice, and the smells. Let's be clear, your dog is a walking cloud of floral oil musk and powdered soap. His paws are cleaner than your hands. Your maids scrub the floor where he walks, but not the chamber pot stand. You once saw a noblewoman dab perfume on her dog's belly before greeting the king. The king complimented the scent. She fainted. You try not to be jealous because no one sprays you with violet water. No one brushes your hair with silken bristles while humming softly. No one wraps you in warmed cloth and whispers, "There, there, my little darling." Your perfume is self-applied. Your bath, if it happens, is public rushed and freezing. But the dog, he is royalty in miniature. No obligations, no corsets, no bloodletting, just naps and treats and the occasional ribbon. You envy him. There was a time when a visiting nobleman accused your terrier of biting his ankle. You defended your dog with a speech so eloquent the Duke requested a copy. The dog received a gift basket. You received silence. Still, there's comfort here, in the brushing, in the scent, in the weight of your dog curled against your side while you pretend your shift isn't damp and your wig isn't lopsided. He sighs. You smile, and for a moment you are both clean, content, cared for, even if only one of you smells like lilac and freedom. The banquet hall is dazzling tonight, walls lit with candlelight silk banners, wafting gently in the breeze of 100 whispers. Gold glimmers from every goblet jewel and crooked tooth. The smell is layered, roast meat, warm bodies, rancid wig glue, and beneath it all, you. Because tonight is a feast, and feasting means sweat. You sit straight, corseted breath, shallow sleeves, heavy with embroidered lions and ambition. You've eaten 3 bites and already need a nap. But you can't leave yet, because you're royalty. And royalty doesn't perspire. Not publicly. Not visibly. Not in ways that can be commented upon without social execution. And so we arrive at the world of royal deodorant, or lack thereof. No antiperspirant, no roll-on relief. Just layers of linen patches of herbs and prayers to saints whose job descriptions definitely didn't include armpits. Earlier, your maid dusted your underarms with a blend of powdered myrtle leaves and crushed violets. This was followed by a dab of rose oil, a linen pad secured with ribbon, and a fervent hope that you wouldn't dance. You will dance. The moment the musicians strike up a nobleman offers his hand, you rise smiling. Your shoes already pinch. Your corset is fighting for dominance over your lungs. And your underarms. Well, they've begun to whisper dissent. You glide. You twirl. You sweat. It's discreet at first, glistening at the temples, a little dampness beneath the arms. Your maid stationed near the wall watches with eagle eyes. If needed, she'll intercept you mid-dance with a lace handkerchief accidentally dropped into your path. You'll retrieve it, press it to your brow, and murmur, "Thanks," like a martyr. Some noblewomen keep citrus peels in their sleeves. You've tried it. It helps for about 20 minutes. Then your sweat smells like spoiled oranges. You once tried sponging your armpits with wine vinegar. It stung. You smelled like salad. There's no real cure. You powder more. You fan more. You pretend you're glowing with virtue, not melting from mutton heat and political tension. After dinner, you retreat to the retiring room. At least 5 ladies crowd around the mirror, dabbing their faces with little sponges, adjusting their wigs, pretending they weren't just clapping politely with underboob sweat pooling like medieval lava. You carefully remove your linen armpit pads. They are damp, fragrant, offensive in both texture and implication. You dispose of them discreetly. A new pair is tucked into place. You repowder. You spritz more perfume. You apply a smile and return to the hall. There is scholarly disagreement about how often noble women actually attended these feasts, or how much they participated. Some say they dined like birds, present for appearances only. Others insist they were expected to eat, drink, dance, flirt, and sparkle. You think both are true. You sparkle, and you suffer, because no amount of rosemary-scented oil can fully conquer human biology in a wool blend gown with 47 buttons, especially in summer. The queen once collapsed during a midsummer ball. It was said she was overcome by passion. You saw the sweat puddle beneath her chair. Still, everyone pretended. The noblewoman next to you now smells strongly of lavender and fear. Her smile is fixed. Her hair is wilting. She hasn't blinked in 10 minutes. You take a sip of wine. It's warm. You pretend not to notice the growing dampness beneath your bust. Later tonight, your gown will be peeled off. Your shift soaked. Your corset wet with the scent of goat butter and roasted duck. And your maid will nod quietly and say, "You danced beautifully." You'll believe her, because sweat is never mentioned. Not here, not in writing, not aloud. It's absorbed. And so are you. You awaken to bells again, but not the sweet chapel kind. These are urgent clanging, unmistakably from below. Something is wrong. The chambermaid bursts in without knocking. Your Grace, there's a fire. The laundry quarters. You sit up disoriented. Your bed is cold. Your shift is damp. And smoke curls lazily under the doorframe. You move fast, well, as fast as one can, while tangled in bedding, bruised from corset bruises, and barefoot. This is not the first time something is burned. Because in your world, hygiene is a fire hazard. Let's start with the laundry. Everything you wear, shifts, stockings, lace-trimmed sleeves, must be washed by hand, boiled, scrubbed with ash and lye, and dried over open flame, or hung near the hearth. Linens are scorched more often than cleaned. Your lace chemises bear smoke stains like battle scars. You own dozens of them, not because you love variety, but because it takes so long to get one clean. And yet, laundry is never truly clean. The soap is harsh. The water is rarely changed. The drying racks are covered in soot. If you're lucky, your clothing smells like firewood. If not, like damp wool and melted beeswax. Once your favorite petticoat caught fire because a maid turned her back on the stove for a single second. You screamed. She screamed. The petticoat died a hero. The fire today is small, but the damage is loud. Laundry girls scramble with buckets. Wet linen steams on the stone floor. Your maid pulls you toward the hall, muttering, "This is why we should have aired the sheets yesterday." You say nothing. Because she's right. Everything in your chamber is flammable, your bed hangings, your powdered wigs, your scented oils. You once caught a sleeve on a candle during dinner. The bishop called it a divine warning. Then there's the candle issue. You live by candlelight. You raid by it, bathe by it, dress beside it. Wax drips everywhere. Your gowns bear scorch marks near the hem. Your wig once singed. The scent lingered. For days, burnt hair and roses. Perfume, too, is a risk. Alcohol-based, highly flammable. One countess nearly lost her eyebrows leaning too close to a candelabra. You saw it happen. Her face melted into disbelief. She smelled like fruitcake for a week. And yet the alternative is worse. You tried going unscented once, just once. People asked if you were mourning. The Queen Mother patted your hand and whispered, "You smell brave." So you dab the perfume, light the candles. Pray your chemise doesn't betray you. Cleaning the chamber itself is another story. There's no running water, no plumbing. Spills are wiped, never rinsed. Ash is swept into corners. Chamber pots emptied but never truly sanitized. You cover the worst with carpets, woolen sponges that trap every odor known to man. Your cat once vomited beneath your dressing table. The stain is still there. You've named it Florence the Tune. And yet the room gleams. Because your maid is excellent at appearing clean. She shakes out linens, sprinkles dried rosemary near the hearth, arranges lavender bunches on the sill. She calls it masking. You call it survival. There's modern debate, of course. Some historians say noblewomen kept immaculate quarters. Others claim filth was simply perfumed into invisibility. You believe both. You live in a clean-looking illusion built on dust and flammable lies. Tonight the fire is out. The scorched linens are removed. The hall smells like wet ash and singed soap. You sit at your vanity, watching your maid repowder your wig with trembling hands. You do not mention the flames. You mention that the lavender near the window is looking dry. She nods. You smile. Because in your world everything burns eventually. And it's your job to look radiant while it does. Tonight, everything is quiet. No fire. No feast. No whispered rumors floating behind your back like your own lace train. Just the soft creak of your chair, the crackle of the hearth, and the gentle tug of fatigue pulling at your spine. You are still dressed mostly. Still painted vaguely. Still watched always, though your maid has finally gone to sleep on the low bench by the door. This is the closest you get to solitude. You stare into the mirror, face half lit by firelight, half faded under layers of sweat powder and societal obligation. You begin the nightly ritual of unbeautifying. It is slow, intentional, a little haunting. The rouge is first, wiped away with oil and linen. Underneath your cheeks are not pale but red from irritation, dotted with faint sores. You press gently. One weeps. You pretend it doesn't. Then the ceruse white lead finely cracked like old plaster peeling off a wall. It comes off reluctantly, leaving behind a shadow of itself in every crease. You glimpse your real skin. You almost don't recognize it. Next, the lips. Your vermilion smile vanishes with a single swipe, leaving a slightly bluish tint beneath. You lick your lips and taste metal. You do it again. You don't know why. Your wig comes off last. It is heavy. It sighs in your hands like a tired guest. Underneath your real hair is damp flat braided so tightly your scalp tingles. You scratch behind your ears like a grateful mongrel. Your cat Florence III watches from the windowsill and does the same. And then you exhale. You are still wearing a damp shift. It smells faintly of sage sweat and today's politics. But it's yours. So you lie back on the bed, not even bothering to pull the covers over you. The scent of the room wraps around you. It is complex, regal, aged, wood smoke, wax, forgotten lavender, old rosewater clinging to fabric, something vaguely animal. something definitely human. You think this is the smell of power. You also think this is the smell of surrender. You close your eyes, and for a moment you are not being perceived, not being judged, not being poised. You are just a body worn out from the business of being female, entitled in a world that expects you to sparkle with no visible effort. You remember something your mother's voice once saying, to be royal is to never admit discomfort. Only poor people get to itch. You scratch your thigh just because. There's scholarly debate about what royal women really thought, whether they embraced this system or merely endured it, whether they considered it divine or ridiculous. You think both. You are complicit, you are trapped, you are exhausted, you are amused. Because through it all, through bloodletting shared baths, floral pets melting makeup, and the constant war against sweat, you have survived another day of high-maintenance, low-privacy, symbolically clean living. You are a masterpiece of illusion, and a mess beneath it. Your cat blinks at you. You blink back. Somewhere below, someone's still cleaning up from supper. Somewhere else, a candle burns, a little too close to a curtain. You don't care. You pull the shift tighter around your shoulders, sigh once, and let the bed accept you as you are damp, powdered, cracked, and entirely royal. You survived. And now, the candles are low. The gowns are hung. The perfumes have settled into the furniture. Let the palace fade around you, stone walls dissolving into silence, footsteps becoming echoes, and the last scent of rosewater slipping into memory. Your hands stiff from corsets and ceremony unclench. Your breath slows. No more feasts. No more fans. No more worry about whether the lemon peel in your bodice still smells fresh. Tonight, no one is watching. The mirror turns its gaze inward. The fire offers only warmth now, not judgment. And the bed, lumpy and mildly suspicious as it may be, holds you without expectation. Let your thoughts drift like lace on a breeze. No more royal rituals. No more scratching politely through scented fabric. Just the softness of stillness. The quiet of nobody asking anything. Even the cat has curled up, purring faintly, her tail twitching in some forgotten dream of mice or candlelight or both. And you did it. You powdered, perfumed, paraded, and persisted. You turned sweat into status. You turned discomfort into display. You turned being constantly observed into an art form. But now you can rest. Let your breathing fall into rhythm. Let the last scent of lavender pretend to be clean. Let the hush of the old velvet blanket be enough. You're safe. You're still. You're utterly exhausted. And sleep is finally allowed.